Hello and welcome to an episode of Under the 128. Alex Moss here, joined as always by my co-host Matthew Kiernan, aka the Darting Nerd. It's been, I think, 5 or 6 weeks since episode 2, but as always, lots going on and for us to discuss as well. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Grassroots Darts, because since our last episode, things have opened up. The Grassroots Darts is returning. I've been able to play a couple of games in my pub. So Matthew, how are you doing and how are your darts going?
Well, I haven't had a chance to. I haven't had a chance to throw them into the ones and the fives just yet, but hopefully that'll be next week at Walton. Fingers crossed, and if not, then it'll be the week after at Tonbridge. And certainly feel a lot happier about things being double jabbed. I know you're double jabbed as well. So who would have thought this 6 months ago? In deepest, darkest, lockdown 3. So no, it's great how it's progressed and we're allowed to do these things once again, and that there are these tournaments and that the venues have survived. By and large, they have survived. So and absolutely loads happening under the 128, hence the name of the show.
Yeah, you've got it in there. Yeah, it's good to see the darts scene thriving a little bit. I mean, our darts league that I play on a Wednesday, we've started with some friendlies, so we're easing ourselves back into it. But on a Thursday, we've got a knockout tournament which has been going on every week, and the darts referee Jack has been going to it a few times. Kevin Payne and Jack Main, a few established names there as well, and I might try and pop down there on Thursday next week. I'm not going to play, I'm not going to bring my darts, I'll give everyone else a chance, but yeah, just to see a few familiar faces would be nice. But we've got lots to discuss. Unfortunately for our fans that like the slides, we don't have the slides this week. We're a bit unorganized for this one, but we are still going to be talking about everything that's going on. And let's start with the UKDA, which is probably the biggest news that's come out recently, is the tie-up with the, as they call it, the Modus Online Darts League. There's going to be 4 spots for Super League players that are going to be available to play in the online league. Talk to us a little bit about it, because it's another opportunity for these players. It's been a long time from without playing, but now we've got the Super League coming back, a chance to play in the online league as well.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with the live, the online darts live darts league, I think that's right. One of the criticism I had early doors was that although it was great for the players that were picked to be in it, it almost seemed like, because we kept seeing the same players, over and over again, there almost seemed to be sort of a closed shop element. But now, thanks to the online qualifiers, which they've also announced, and now thanks to this tie-up with the Super Leagues under the UKDA region, and structure, more people will get that opportunity. And I think what we saw in the latest phase is, the likes of Robert Wickwood and the others that qualified through those online qualifiers, was that they can more than handle themselves. So it is good news. There was some consternation in the comment sections. If you want to find out what people really think, you can go to the comment sections of people's posts. And the fact that Super Leagues are starting at different points. So that's the plan. Again, whenever there's a discussion in darts and a problem in darts, it always comes down to dates, as we know. And again, with this, the first week it's Premier only, and then another week it's Division 1, and then it's Division 10, and they just cascade down. But of course, all the Super Leagues are starting at a different time, so there's a bit of discussion about that. But it's great that UKDA players potentially have the opportunity in that sort of tie-in to get that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did see, when the news came out the following day, the UKDA, they did have a discussion with the delegates or whoever they were, and they said that it's not just going to be 1 week where you qualify. It's going to be a 4-week stretch. I think starting from Monday, it's going to be 4 weeks where you can, I think it's whoever gets the highest average or performs the best over those 4 weeks is going to get that spot. And I believe it's one from every division. So again, that's a great opportunity, isn't it, for the players that are playing in the Premier Division? I don't know how far it goes, but 1, 2, and 3. I think divisions 1, 2, and 3. So there's, for players, it's going to be a good chance for them, and especially the exposure that the online league does bring. If you go far enough in it, you've got that big pot of money for Champions Week, and some of the sessions are on TV as well, not just YouTube as well. So it's a good chance for them to play in it. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. And with the UKDA as well, we know the county game is very close to coming back as well. I believe mid-September. So that's coming up very soon.
I mean, I think the one thing I would say is that it's great to see collaboration, isn't it? Because for so long it's been everyone likes a sort of territorial grab and how dare you, and arguments between various organizations, and this is obviously a three-way sort of collab, so that's great to see.
I'm gonna dip back into the UKDA in a little bit, but let's move on to the WDF. And when we last spoke, they were just starting to get going again. We had a few events, a little too far for us to travel at the moment in New Zealand, but we've seen a few more recently. We had 4 in July, we've got 2 in August, a pretty quiet month, but things are going to really start to pick up. They're going to get going again September, October. We've got the England Open in Chelsea in September. October, you've got a lot of opens in Denmark, Northern Ireland, the British Open, the Welsh Open, the Hungary Open. But one event that we're not going to have is the biggest of them all, the Dutch Open. Our pairs title is going to have to wait now until 2022. But what was your reaction? I know it's been a little while since that news came out now, but the Dutch Open being cancelled, because people immediately their thoughts will turn to the World Masters, which of course is at the same venue a little further down the line in December. But what was your reaction when you found out?
Yeah, well, it does make you wonder what's going to happen, really, because it is a huge market, and the participation levels in the Netherlands are amazing. And what are those players going to do in terms of trying to potentially qualify for the World Championship, which we know is happening as things stand in January. So yeah, I know Tony O'Shea was on the record as saying, well, I think he gave an interview whilst fishing and was saying, well, I can't see the Masters happening. Can you? I mean, how are we going to get over there, and how can that happen when the Netherlands have had it so bad in relation to the pandemic? So it's worrying. And again, you have to feel for the WDF, because they're trying to relaunch the global tour, and I think it is more of a global tour than what the PDC offers, in my opinion, because it really does sort of go around all the and everyone's on an equal playing field. But yeah, it's hard to see how they're going to be able to have that sort of full range of events under the current circumstances. Very sad.
Yeah, it is a shame. I mean, the Dutch Open is one that we often talk about. It is a special event. Go back 20 years, we had Sean Greatbatch hit the 9-darter, the first one on live TV, which was a special moment. Lots of great moments that have happened in that tournament. And of course, it usually happens around February, March time, and they pushed it back this year because we were still in lockdowns back then. They pushed it back to September with the hope of getting it on this year. And sadly, it won't be honest that the first year in the event's history that it's not been on. 1973 was the first one. Almost 50 years they've gone, and how big this event has turned into. But we do know that it's penciled in for February next year, back to its more traditional slot, and we've got our fingers crossed that one will get the go ahead. But as you say, that the travelling is a massive part of the WDF tour, and that's the big stumbling block for them at the minute, is players getting to travel to different countries and coming back. And if they have to do the quarantine, the isolation, the testing, is a lot of expense that goes into it. And for a lot of these players under the 128, they're not professional. They work alongside the darts. They play darts at the weekends. It's a hobby for them, and they do well out of it as well. The prize money that they pick up, the events that they win. But if you add all that expenditure into it, some of them are probably going to say, well, I just can't do it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But hopefully when we get to this point next month, we'll have had the England Open, which will attract a big field, we can imagine. And then we're looking ahead to those other events as well, and the race to Lakeside really picking up, because then we are going to really have a good idea on who is going to qualify and be there in January.
Just one last point on the Dutch Open. There was quite an entertaining discussion about whether the Dutch Open could be moved in terms of the nation in which it's held in. So that's the Dutch Open not being played in the Netherlands, which was a serious suggestion being put forward, and that was quite amusingly shot down, which I did quite enjoy.
Right, let's circle back to the UKDA, and as we mentioned earlier, the county game is very close to returning, but no news yet, I don't think, on what's happening with regards to the Welsh side of it, the Welsh Darts organisation. Our first episode, we spoke about the statement that those guys put out and potentially threatening to break away. We haven't heard any updates on that, but we have had Super League coming back, and I was never at a standard to play Super League, so I wouldn't know how it all works and stuff, but good to see that coming back. And good friend of the show, Dartscast's YouTube channel, he's put a video up recently where he's getting himself ready for his return to Super League. So for a lot of the players playing during the week, it's a big part of their darts life, and it's coming back now.
It's a great video, the Darts last one. You really should watch that, and it's very good for the venues as well, because it's it's a very important source of income, because to get that guaranteed crowd into a venue in midweek. It's really very important, and I think everyone that's a tour card holder that's UK based would have played Super League at some point in their life, and probably continue to do so, to be honest, because it keeps their eye in, and it's a sort of an underreported, very important stage of the pyramid. And yes, all being well, I know various regions have returned, but all being well, they will all be back in the next couple of weeks.
I've seen a few regions as well. They're now starting to use Dart Connect for their Super League, which is going to help massively with regards to the admin side of darts, because I know, mention another name as well, Matt Langan, who runs his software, which takes out a lot of the paperwork side of things, but Dart Connect as well. It's going to make a big difference for them, and I think there will be fees involved. I think each team has to pay maybe £10 a season extra to have the Dart Connect, so they can be signed up to the system and be able to use it. But again, it's another way of pushing that side of darts forward and making it more accessible for people, and as well the volunteers. I can't imagine the amount of hours they've probably spent at the weekends or after the Super League games have finished on their laptop, on their computer, putting in all the data onto the computer from the pieces of paper that they've got. So again, I think this could be another step in the right direction.
Well, they are the heroes, aren't they? The volunteers that run these leagues. We must never forget them. And I think what Dart Connectors and systems like that Matt Langan produces have done is basically standardizing and raising the profile of darts, and that is what people expect now. And I think that if Super League's going to have it, County already have it, of course, with Darts for Windows. We know that every PDC event is covered, and I would imagine most WDF events will be covered by it as well. The only gap in terms of sort of instantaneous results are opens, our local opens, and we'll come on to that in relation to MAD shortly.
Well, indeed. Well, let's move on to MAD. Lots going on with them as well, Modern Amateur Darts. Let's start off with the finals night, the title belts night that was on during the World Match Play, I think on the Friday night during that week. We had a few titles on the line, some more local belts, but I guess the three big ones, we had the Welsh title, Jim Williams, a man very much in form at the minute, defending his title against Jamie Lewis. We had the English title, Daryl Fitton, keeping hold of it, beating Ricky King 8-7, and the big one, it used to be the MAD World Championship belt. It's now the MAD Global belt. It's been renamed because MAD are going to put on their own World Championship next year. But we've got a new champion, Jared Cole, beating Wayne Warren 11-2 in the finals. Did you catch any of the stream? What did you make of that night of darts?
I did see a fair amount of the stream, actually. I felt sorry for them, really, because it was scheduled right next to the World Match Play, and I appreciate that you have to have, again, dates. You have to have a date at some point, so you have to carry on. I think what was refreshing was that in the press release that Steve Brown is quoted in after the event, I think that the point that he was making was that you have to start somewhere. And I think he appreciated that it wasn't perhaps as grand as the Winter Gardens, but you do have to start from somewhere and build upwards. So, you know, it was good that they got one under the belt from that perspective. Obviously, I have to declare an interest because I do freelance for TCL Management. Steve Brown is a player at TCL Management, so obviously I do have an affinity for Steve. I think that the stream itself, I mean, I've tried to make streams and have failed miserably. So, you know, I cried myself to sleep about that in the past. So anyone that can put a stream on of any sort of standard at all from start to finish deserves you know, an awful lot of credit. Absolutely. I think if I had to be, you know, make some constructive points, you know, the two camera setup, it wasn't always entirely clear. The board wasn't always entirely clear, in my view. It was quite difficult watching on a mobile device. And I think that the commentator was excellent. And I think that's Carl Redden. I'm fairly sure it's Carl Redden. If it isn't, I apologise. Was really good, but I couldn't, you know, I couldn't hear him very well. So I don't know if there's, that would be what I would say from a constructive point of view. I think it was a shame. In terms of the playing, it was a shame to see Wayne Warren struggle like he did, and he continued to struggle after that in the Challenge Tour, where, you know, he scored, you know, £0 basically in terms of money collected. But, you know, well done to you know, to Jared Cole for taking that title. We do have to talk about belts, but I suspect that's coming. And we. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, and of course, we're not going to have a 13-hour debate on whether it's a global championship or a world championship belt. Although I certainly agreed, if you follow Darts Twitter, I certainly agreed with one of the people in that particular debate rather than the other one. I think that, yeah, I think that for the regional belts, it was great to see the likes of Stu Wilson, who I've never seen play before, and he was clearly very, very good, and he won his you know, Falcons title against Scott Taylor, and that was great, and I think that's fantastic for exposure. And obviously Richard North won his and looked very, very happy about it. And all that stuff is great. And I guess the debates, if we are going to talk about belts, and it feels like that's what's coming up, is what's more important? Is it winning a belt in a one-off, you know, money racer type exhibition, or a tournament? And I think the answer is probably a tournament, isn't it?
I'd be very lucky to win either of them. But yeah, I think that, yeah, that is an interesting one. But yeah, it's a great point you make. And we have had a question come in, and it's come from our friend of the show, Andrew Sinclair, inside the WDF. He said, I've got a question for you and Matt later, by the way. Why have the Mad belts proved so divisive? And there has been a lot of debate about the belts. Firstly, when they got announced during the Mad launch back in December last year, but also now recently when we've had this night with all the belts on the line like we did, and the stuff that's come out after that, a lot of people talking about it. And now we've got a few matches lined up, some title matches lined up for September as well. So what are your thoughts on the whole belt system, and why, I guess, it's not really been met with 100% positivity from the darts fans?
Oh, it's a really hard issue, this, isn't it? Well, still, yeah. So obviously, we discussed it at length at the launch, partly because you know, James Richardson said, "Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough." Jim Williams was kissing the belt like a boxer. So, you know, inevitably people are going to latch onto that and you know, point fingers. And it's new, so I totally get that. So anything that's new, British public, regardless of if it's darts or anything else, are automatically going to go, whoa, you know, I can't possibly get on board with this. But having said that, it does come down to the money racer type element. So in the if you remember, in the 80s and 90s, early noughties, there were these challenge matches where both parties would put up money. It would go into a pot, and then they would play it at a venue, and they would get a baying mob, you know, to cheer them on. And that's basically what this belt challenges system is trying to tap into. There is controversy in relation to it because if you remember, the challenger has to put up all the money, and regardless, if the challenger wins the match, they don't win any money. You only win the money. You're only guaranteed any money if you're the belt holder. So the belt holder will get money regardless, and then the challenger can only earn the money if you become the belt holder. Does that make sense? So there is discussion about whether that is correct or not. And then it comes down to what we were discussing before, is if you're winning a tournament or if you're winning a one-off exhibition type belt challenge match, well, what's more important? And I think the tournament side. And I think in relation to MAD, the stuff that I'm really interested in, and I will come on to this in relation to Opens, are their, quote unquote majors, which we haven't heard much of yet, but I'm sure we will. So there's obviously that European, there's that Chelsea weekend in December, which clashes with a county weekend, as we keep discussing. So, I'm really interested to see how that goes. And then they've got these other majors, which include the British Amateur Open, the National League Championship, and the MAD Vault. And I think there's one other whose name escapes me. Those are the tournaments that I want to hear about and would like some more information about, and whoever wins those, that really does interest me a lot. And then that's how there's super regions and super regions, and you're a Titan and I'm an invader. Remember, in terms of the super regions, that's how it's going to. That's what really interests me, rather than the belts. What do you think?
Yeah, it is a tricky one because, as you say, the belt system is a new concept really for darts. I know you mentioned what's gone on in the past, I guess not behind closed doors, but it wasn't really as much in the public eye as I guess this organisation MAD is. But with all these things, it takes time for it to gather that bit of success, that bit of momentum. And unfortunately, through no fault of their own, they've launched this during a global pandemic when, for I guess 95% of their existence, darts has been at a grassroots level, everything under the PDC, non-existent. It's not been able to happen, but now we are seeing things open up again. This is really going to be the time when we're going to see if the belts do take off or not, because we've got a couple of events coming up in September. I think we've got the Scottish title. Gary Stone is putting that on the line against Cameron Menzies. The following night, we've got James Richardson, the European champion. He's defending his title against Robert Thornton. So they're now starting to, I guess, do what they wanted to do with the belts to begin with. They didn't want to wait 7-8 months for a player to put their title on the line. And James Richardson, he's not played a belt match or put his belt on the line since he won it in that launch back in December. So when you go 7-8 months without playing for that belt, you do lose a lot of that momentum that's going to come with it when you're playing regularly. So this is the time, I think, when we're going to find out if the belts is going to be a successful concept. Let's give them the next 3-4 months, see what they can do with it. And yeah, it's a concept that for a lot of darts fans, they're probably still scratching their heads going, well, why should we care about this? Really, we care about the tournaments, the leagues, and what we've grown up with and what we're used to. But I'm pretty sure that the belts are here to stay. I don't think they're going to go anywhere with MAD. They want to do a lot in darts, and the belts is part of that. So yeah, I'm reserving judgment at the minute, but I think these next few months are going to be crucial, really, to see whether they are a success and whether darts fans and players and everyone involved in the game really starts to get behind it.
Well, the only way that they'll possibly disappear is if people don't put bids in, and people are continuing to put bids in at the moment, at least for the national ones. So that's, therefore it will always stay. The other tournament I've forgotten now remembered is the Pub to Pro Masters, which is a really good idea. And again, that is the whole concept of this, is to go from your local pub up to, the upper echelons of the pyramid. And I think that, the belt concept is good for the local regions, because, if it gets people like Stu Wilson coverage, then that's exactly what this should be all about. But yes, it is an alienating thing. And of course, the other debate, which I saw on Darts Twitter, which we do enjoy, was, well, is that European belt really a European belt because it's James Richardson versus Robert Thornton? That at the moment, no European player, outside of the UK, has put in a bid in order to travel and do so. So there was a bit of consternation, a bit of discussion about that as well.
More chat about MAD as well. Another point that we like to talk about is the rankings, and at this moment in time, we've not really seen anything as far as rankings. I know it's kind of still early days, but what are your thoughts really on how that's developing, or I guess not developing at the moment? And also, a lot of opens are starting to be played and MAD ranking points are being assigned to these events, but we're not really seeing too much in the way of coverage for these events.
Yeah, well, I think as soon as the ranking tables launch, I think MAD will really take off. That's why I genuinely believe that, because one of the beautiful things about local opens and local leagues and what we like to think of in terms of the pathway is that you start from the bottom and everything works. You do well in your region and then you work upwards. I'm totally on board with that. It's hard to inspire that if the standings aren't available. I'm sure they will be available very soon, but for the people that I have spoken to, there is perhaps some confusion at the moment in relation to how it works, because it doesn't, because there are none at the moment. So I think in theory what you will see is you'll be able to click on each region and see where you are, and you'll have your own profile that you can click on, and you can see your points and you can see your tallies. One word of warning I would say to MAD is that whoever the poor admin person is that has to sort all those points, and hopefully it is the software driven solution that they've touted, you are always going to get people saying you've spelt my name wrong, or this result isn't right, or where are my points, has this been updated, or so I've got someone else's points, or I've got two profiles or something like that. Because I know this because I do it in athletics, and these are exactly the same things that happen in athletics, because there is a website called the Power of 10.info. Every athletics fan knows this website. They are it's both a blessing and a curse, because people become so addicted to their own profile and what they're putting out there, that sometimes they'll deliberately not finish a race because they don't want the time to go on or something like that. It's just stupid, but hopefully that doesn't happen in darts. I think that's what MAD should be prioritizing, because I think as soon as that happens, it will catch fire.
Yeah, I think this is as I said earlier, this is a big time coming up now for MAD, really, to see if it can take off. And they want to do a lot in darts. We've got the belts, we've got the MAD ranking points that are going to be affiliated to these opens, you've got the majors. They're very ambitious in what they want to do, and it's going to take a lot of resource, I guess, for this to really hit its full potential. And with a lot of these things, and not just MAD, but you've also got to factor in the WDF. A lot of their work is run on volunteers, the UKDA as well, I believe. So we all love the PDC and what they do with their social media, their website. It's very well updated. You can almost find out anything that you want to find out through the website. It's very well signposted, and what they do as far as building up the events and coverage during the events. And social media is massive now. I mean, going on a smaller scale, if you like, I used to do some social media work for my local football club, and I left that role a couple of months ago, and they've now basically got to fill it with volunteers, split the role up, and at the minute they've not really got anyone doing it. So you can see how that can change from having someone doing it to someone not doing it. The coverage drops a little bit, the updates drop, and people lose interest, because the only way people are going to carry on having that interest is seeing regular updates and being part of it and following what's going on. So I certainly think for these guys, if you can get that resource in, it will play a big factor. And one idea I had anyway, that feel free to take this if you want, but the MAD, you just have to look at their website. The events, it's full now. A lot of events every weekend up and down the country that are going to have the ranking points assigned to them. Why not do a weekly roundup on the website with all the opens, pictures, get the guys that are running these events to send in a couple of words, how the events went, who won it, blah, blah, blah. If there was like a PDC player that played in it, it's all good exposure for it. And if you've got any pictures of someone with the title or the check or whatever they get, it's all going to help. So hopefully that's an idea they can pick up, or just improving the coverage as far as how these events are going, because from the onset, MAD said that they were here to cater for all darts players. And at the minute, it kind of feels like they're looking at the top really, as far as the belts and the players that can afford to put in the bids. But yeah, as I said, I think going forward, we'll hopefully see them start to pick up that coverage, and then MAD can really take off.
I think there'll be a lot of interest in that, in what you're saying, because it can't just be us that's interested in a roundup like that. I think that Stevie Buck is a classic, isn't he? Because he runs a lot of tournaments and he does a fantastic job on social media of promoting them. And of course, Brian Dawson seems to win all of them at the moment. And he has said that he hasn't affiliated his to MAD because he is confused by it, basically, or words to that effect. And so that that's something that needs to be looked at, because he is in his region a very prolific organizer, and full credit to him for that, full credit to any organizer that does it, so it needs to be as easy as possible. The one next week at Walton I'm going to is MAD affiliated. The one following week is Tonbridge, that is also MAD affiliated. The one I was at Croydon yesterday was not. So we're not at a point yet where they all are affiliated. I think what I would say as well is that it's great that there's a list of events on a website at long last. So they have done that really well, because that didn't exist, and it was always in Facebook groups, and you had to hunt through and dig through, and there's all these posters of varying quality, it has to be said, and it was like a treasure hunt, the world's worst treasure hunt, to try and find your next dance tournament at your local social club. So they have done a very good job on that. And it was coming to our special feature, which may not, which may only last one episode now, because I think that MAD could aspire to be very much like other sports and governing bodies in other sports. And we're going to demonstrate this through the power of acting. Yes, you've heard it right. Alex is getting his script up. So, the Under the 128 thespian players. So every darts player has had this conversation in some description over the years, and this is what I think that MAD can do to basically should eradicate this scourge of conversation which happens all the time. So here we go. So this takes place on a Wednesday at your Super League. Oh, hi Alex, how are you?
Well, good. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Did you play that Open at the weekend?
I did, yeah. I didn't do very well. I lost in the second round.
Oh God, sorry to hear that. Well, yeah, there's always next time, isn't there? Who won that then?
Oh, I don't know who won that. Sorry, I can't help you with that.
Oh well. End scene. Right. So, but that everyone listening that has played a league in midweek has had that conversation. You and I have had that conversation. We who won that then? I don't know. Oh, right. So MAD could, well acted, by the way, because BAFTA's in the post. So, MAD potentially could replicate other sports and aspire to be like other sports, like, for example, athletics, where results need to be either live if it's chip timing, or up within a day or two. Cricket, that scorecard has to, between two teams, has to be that night. I noticed that on the MAD posters that they released in December, the things that they aspire to be and ask of the organisers to send them the results within 24 hours. So clearly they know that this is time sensitive, and hopefully it's something that they're aspiring to be. So I think in the long run, it should be like that. Let's just hope they get there.
Let's see. Well, another darts event to talk about, which is continuing and just finished up last night, the online league, the second Champions Week, won by Jim Williams. He's a man on a mission at the moment. He's doing well in the Challenge Tour, doing well in the online league as well. He picks up the £6,000 top prize. It went up from 5,000 to 6,000. I believe the next one is going to be £7,000 to the winner. So the prize fund is continuing to increase in that. Beat Fallon Sherrick in the final. She had a very good week getting to the Saturday final and getting to the final of that. Kevin Burness, by all accounts, played pretty well in it as well, getting to the final a bit as well. I personally, I've got to admit, hands up, I didn't watch too much of it. And I know we joked, Sean McDonald called us out on our chat that we had with him last week. He said that, I know that you and your co-host didn't watch me in the Champions Week. And I said, well, that's what catch-up is all about. But must admit, didn't watch too much of this recent iteration of it. But we do know that it's going to be starting up again on Monday. So there's going to be another Champions Week, and there's going to be another one after that, because we are going to see the Super League players that qualify involved in that. So it continues to go on. What have you made of how the online league is continuing to progress?
Yes, so I will also admit that I didn't watch as much as I should have done, but I definitely do, of course, whenever there's a TCL player involved. And by the way, Conan Whitehead who is a TCL player, should have been involved this week, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, under the Challenge Tour, because nothing dramatic happened at the Challenge Tour. And apologies to Sean McDonald for missing his final, because the live league continues to go from strength to strength, but is still held very late on a Saturday night. It starts at 10 and the finals at 1:30, 2 in the morning, which is at least 5 hours after our bedtime, as we know. It's great for Jim Williams, who's winning everything. And I think that there's a lot of support for him to finally make that breakthrough at long last. I think we forget that he was the big name, along with Glenn Durrant a few years ago, going to Q School, and obviously Glenn made it and Jim Williams just missed out, and he hasn't quite been able to get on the tour since then. I think this will be a great stepping stone for him to do so. I think that this is his time, really, and it might be a few years later than what we anticipated. Obviously, we have to remember, of course, that Scott Mitchell only won his tour card in January, and we all know how good the Scott is. So it's taken longer than expected, but good for him, really, really good. And Fallon Sherrick, who was the semi-finalist, well, unfortunately for her, she didn't quite click for at the Challenge Tour. She did fare the best of all the ladies players that were there. And it was good for her to be able to sort of bounce back and compete again at that level. So perhaps she's just starting to find that form, because although her start, the star rating has sort of subsided since that magical few days at Ali Pali, not last year but the year before, has subsided. Maybe she's now just quietly rebuilding to be really competitive once again.
Yeah, definitely, and now is a good time to hit that form with the Women's Series coming up in a few weeks. We've got the 3 weekends rather than the one last year, so that's again more news that's come out since we last spoke. So good to see the PDC putting more resources into the women's game with those 3 weekends coming up, and of course Fallon will be involved in that. I did see a few clips though during the week, during the last 4 or 5 weeks when this has been going on, and I've got to say it was good to see Mark Webster back playing and playing well. He made it to the Champions Week and made it to the Saturday final as well, so really pleased for him that he's back playing. And also give a mention as well to Chris Murphy, the commentator. I know that Chris Mason, Paul Nicholson, they do a great job themselves with the commentary. It's a lot different to their other commentary gigs on the Pro Tour, on ITV, or any other events that they do during a tournament, during a week, during a weekend. These are long days, and especially as a sole commentator as well, you're on there on your own. I think them two do a great job, but also Chris Murphy as well. It's great to see him getting involved in it, and he's one of the best that does it as well. So good to see those guys getting involved in it. And as we say, that the online league continues Monday. I believe Robert Thornton's going to be involved in it. I think I saw his name pop up somewhere, so he's going to be involved in it. A few other players as well, and we'll have the next Champions Week in about 5 or 6 weeks to look forward to. Other darts, though, we should give a mention to the Challenge Tour. We've now had the first weekend in the European Challenge Tour in Germany, and we've just had the one in the UK in Milton Keynes. And we'll start off with yourself. We bigged it up that you were making your debut on the Challenge Tour, and it sounded like it was a successful day.
Sorry. Yeah, get a test. Sorry. Apologies. Yes, thank you for that tweet. That was helpful. I did have to send out clarify to say, this is for marking, just to be clear. Yes, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity to be able to go there and do some marking, because there were no guests allowed. COVID is still a thing, so that clearly it's still very much at the forefront of the PDC's minds, and quite rightly. And it turns out, very late on that they were slightly short on markers. So thankfully, I was able to get that call. And you really have to love darts to wake up at sort of 6 o'clock on a Friday to hurriedly rush out the door to hit the motorway, drive 80 miles to Milton Keynes. But I did, and it was a great experience. It's really hard. Obviously, the respect for those that do the marking, just shot right up. And of course, what we have to remember is they're much longer days than that normally, because Europe have got their own this year. So and they're doing 2 tournaments in a day. So that was brutal. So I was having to do quite a lot of stretching in between each match, which was quite good. So yes, thank you to Paul Butler, Mem Martin rather, and Stu Bethel for that opportunity. The 2 people that won my board, incidentally, just to name a few players that haven't that don't normally get a mention, Sam Cantwell, who's a Welsh international, and Graham Usher won my board as well, who's probably one of the few players that looks back on the World Masters, that last World Masters, with nice memories, because of course he made the quarterfinals. So that was quite good to see. Yes, what was it like watching from afar?
Well, I've got to say, you mentioned Graham Usher there. That was one of the highlights that week. Getting to really chat to him a few days. Spoke to him. He was wandering around the Grey Civic Hall after he'd just beaten the world number 1 Wesley Harms, knocked him out to get to the Circus Tavern stages. And he was wandering around, and I said, "Oh, do you mind having a chat?" And he was delighted to have a chat. He was really enjoying the moment, and then getting up on the Circus Tavern stage and getting a few wins, getting to the quarterfinals. Yeah, so it was really great chatting to him. Glad to hear that he's doing well. But yeah, I think it was a good 3 days. I said to Burton on our Weekly Dartscast last week that the Challenge Tour is one of the hardest tours to predict, because it's not just the players that you have in it, but it's also the fact that you've got the 2 events in one day. So there's a lot going on in those days, and I always find it interesting how players can go from playing in the final of the first event and having 10, 15 minutes and then starting the next event. And then on the flip side, you go out early in that first event, you've got a 3-4 hour wait before you have to play again. And you're watching all those games go on, and it's probably itching to get back and, right those wrongs from what you've done. So it is always an interesting tour to follow. And even more so this year, we've got the split with the UK and Europe. And it was dominated by the Scots at the weekend. We had 4 different Scotsmen winning titles: Jim McEwen, Darren Beveridge, Sean McDonald, Jamie Clark. And then we also had Adam Smith-Neil picking up a title. He's making a bit of a comeback now. And Jim Williams, who we mentioned, getting a title, and he's top of that list after the first weekend. So he's in the driving seat for that tour card. Of course, these are going to finish up in September. September is going to be a very busy month for darts, and we've got the final weekend of both those challenge tours going on, I believe, on the same weekend. So that's going to be, you're going to have a Dart Connect on one device, a Dart Connect on another device, so you don't miss anything. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good weekend. Some interesting stories coming out of it, and of course the Sunday, the infamous Sunday with the fire alarm. And we actually haven't had anything come out from the PDC yet, or the PDPA, as far as a statement on what's gone on. We can only really go off what we saw on social media, reports coming in from people at the venue. So yeah, it wasn't a nice way to end the weekend, with a lot of players having to withdraw from games, and in some cases midway through games as well. So yeah, that was not the best way to end the weekend.
Yes, it was really upsetting. It was one of the few occasions when all of darts social media agreed with one another. It was very similar to when they had that football Super League, and everyone sort of said, "That's a disgrace." It was very similar to that. So I think that the player in question is in serious hot water, really, both with the PDPA and if it's been reported to the police, really. So it's not really much more to add on to that, but it did cost a lot of people potentially that would have progressed in that tournament. And in relation to Conan Whitehead, for example, okay, fine, he wasn't faring well in the match that he was pulled out of at that point. I mean, who knows? You can only speculate on that. However, he was in the Champions Week for the Live League the following week, which then he had to withdraw because of that, because he had to self-isolate because he was a close contact of someone that had tested positive. And of course, these rules come into place irritatingly before tomorrow, when the government guidance changes, Alex, which I'm sure you're keeping up to date with, where if you are I have to for my job, if you are a close contact of someone that's tested positive, you can get a PCR test. You don't have to self-isolate while you wait for the result of that PCR test. Not sure whether I agree with that, but sort of defeats the whole point of it, doesn't it? But anyway, you don't have to self-isolate while you wait for that PCR test. You go get a PCR test, and then you're once you have the negative, you can carry on. So that's the change in guidance, but that only comes into place tomorrow. That's a week too late for Conan, who's missed out this week competing for what was potentially a first prize of £6,000. Well, could you imagine if he was in pretty good form? He reached the semi-final on the first Challenge Tour event. So who's to say? So he's been cost of that opportunity.
Yeah, it was a shame to see how that weekend played out. We've gone through a lot of darts, but I know you wanted to talk about the Opens, which have come back, and yourself, you were at one yesterday, Saturday. It would have been. How have those experiences of being back at the Opens again? Because I know it's a part of darts that you love being involved in.
Well, yes, and this is, of course, one of the reasons why I think MAD can really tap into it and improve it. One of the points I forgot to make on MAD, of course, is that we still haven't heard anything in relation to the ladies and MAD, really. So there's no ladies belt yet, and there's no sort of ranking structure for ladies. So hopefully that will be picked up on as well. So I was at South Croydon. Woo, go Croydon! Yesterday for an Open organised by Darryl Pilgrim. Alan Casey won that. Met Andrew Sinclair from Inside the WDF podcast for the first time, which was brilliant. Gave him some Weekly Dartscast stickers, always on brand, Alex. And then the other one that was yesterday was in Reading, and Richie Edhouse won that, with James Betts being the runner-up, and the semi-finalists were Jason Heaver and Paul Hogan, so it was a pretty high standard at that one. And then next week I'm at Walton, and then the following week I'm at Tonbridge, gunning for those MAD points. If we find out a bit more information about them, and we can have our tussle to see who can win the most MAD points in a week.
Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty one-sided, to be fair. I'm not really playing much darts away from my Wednesday night. I think that's one night a week showing myself up is enough. I don't really want to be stretching it to 2-3 nights a week as much as I'd love to, but maybe further down the line, if I put in a bit more practice and get more involved in it, then I'll see if I can enter a few events as well, because the last one that I played in, it's probably 2016, 2017. So it's been a long time since I've played in an Open, and that was actually the Eric Bristow and Keith Della doubles Open. They put their name to it. That was in a place called Mildenhall here in Suffolk. So that was a good afternoon. We got through a couple of games as well, which is always nice. And I think my partner carried me that day anyway. But yeah, we'll see if we could get back involved in the Opens. But it is nice to hear these events going on. It is a big part of darts, the grassroots side of the game. And to have these events on at the weekend, as you mentioned, for the venues. It helps them get a good income, and it's the social side of darts as well. You see all these people at the weekend, people that you've maybe not seen for a long time, or the only time you do see them is at the darts. So it's great to see the Opens going on again. I know a lot of our listeners, they play as well, and they like to play in the Opens as well. So really pleased that they're back, really pleased that the leagues are back, Super League's back. I think that's probably everything that we've covered for this one. A lot as always that we go through, but I'm sure when we get to do this next month, September, is going to be in the midst of a very busy month. As we said, UKDA, the county game is back for the first time in a long time. The England Open in the WDF, MAD, they've got a few title matches going on. I'm sure there's going to be more details to come from them as well. Pretty sure we'll have some online league going on at the same time as well. And of course, the Challenge Tour is finishing up, the Development Tour this weekend. The Women's Series is getting up and running very soon as well. So yeah, lots of darts that we're going to have to catch up on when we next talk.
And not much happening.
Not much indeed. Well, Matthew, always a pleasure to chat to you. Appreciate you taking the time out, and keep the darts going. We're looking forward to hearing how you get on in your first events back as well. So yeah, get on the practice board, and we look forward to chatting again soon. Thank you very much.